Hi, this is Don on day one of my trailer conversion project. So what I've got here is an old boat trailer. It's got some rust on it, but structurally it's pretty sound. It was just sitting around the side of my house and all the hardware's been taken off it. I've got an island where my cottage is, and I bought a second runabout boat, and once I put it in the water I never need the trailer again. So I'm just going to convert this into basically a teardrop without the fancy curves. And this is step one. I'm just starting to sand down, grind down, because a buddy of mine's going to weld some cross pieces on for me as a start. Okay, I ground down the paint to bare metal so that we'll be able to weld these cross pieces on. So I just laid them on to give an indication of what it's going to look like for the structure. This is 2x2 1/8 inch steel tubing, and it's gonna fit right over these fenders as is with a little modification, and that'll give tons of structure. And then I'm going to take some 2x2s. Let me just get one out of the car here, and not 2x2s, sorry, 1x2s, and I'm just going to get them kind of between these to get an outside perimeter, but I just didn't think that I needed the whole 2x2, so for extra weight I just left it as the 1x2. So before we keep going with the positioning for the welding, I now have to just kind of, there's 4 U-bolts here, 1, 2, 3, 4, which hold the frame to the axle assembly basically to the frame. And because it was a boat trailer, you'll notice it's fairly far back. So I'm just going to move it up a bit to 60-40. So it's going to measure it out and move it 40% from the back and 60% from the front. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to shorten this big long tongue. So big long tongues are good for some things, but not for this project. Well, I took the U-bolts off. They're actually square ones. Problem was, this is to move the axle, they broke. So good news, bad news. Bad news is it broke. Good news is it broke, so that says it was old and I should replace them anyway. So I got to get some new ones. So I had it taken apart, and I brought it into my very crowded, very messy garage because I thought it was going to rain, and I'd actually done a lot of sanding of rust. So you can see the cores. Obviously, I like bikes. That's one of the reasons why I'm building this project, is we're going to go on a whole mountain biking tour of the southwestern U.S. in a couple of weeks. So I'm under a bit of a time gun. Anyway. So I got to get these, so that's just the axle assembly, no worries there. And then the frame, which is laying on the ground here, is actually upside down because I needed to take these bolts here, which were holding the tongue together. I said I was going to cut the tongue, which I have, and this is the section of tongue that's going to go back in. So I just had to take the bolts apart. I'm going to take, there's one more bolt goes between here that I'll take it, and then I can put the new tongue on. But it's upside down. I actually ground down a lot of the rust on the other side, but I'll do the underside here, which is good. Then we're going to do a nice paint job. Maybe do a nice bright fire engine red or something like that. You'll also notice on the fenders, if you look at a little bit earlier in the video, they're all covered in rust. So they're actually getting pretty close to being able to paint. So that's where I'm at for now. Well, we had a pretty successful night tonight. Took the trailer totally apart now. And I finished sanding, grinding everything ready to paint. And what I'm going to do is just paint the underside, put it back together, and then do the welding. I'll do the watching. My friend will do the welding, and then we'll on to the next phase. Well, you'd hardly recognize this thing from last night, so I painted it, and super happy with the way it's looking right now. So there's the kind of wheel axles. And as I said last night, this is the underbelly, so I've painted it just kind of a bright red. It looks pretty good. And then the tongue, it's upside down because that's the bottom. I just got it sitting in there to make sure. I got to drill a hole right here because I shorten it so it comes across, and it also clamps onto that thing right there. So I should probably wait 24 hours or so before I put it back together because of the paint being totally dry, but I don't know, something tells me this thing's going to be back together tonight because I'm just super anxious to see what it looks like. Well, I couldn't wait, so I put it together, and looks great. Really happy with it. And like I said a couple of times, I just painted the bottom because you'll see where these grind marks are. That's where the cross pieces are going to go, so we need to keep the bare metal. So everything was perfect, but there's always a problem where you don't think things through. So I forgot that I was going to add, I didn't forget it, yeah, I forgot. This jack stand. It has a wheel on the bottom, but I didn't leave enough space. So the good news, I did plan ahead and I left it extra long, more tongue than I needed, because I wasn't sure what I was going to really end up with. So it's pretty simple. I just need to undo the one center U-bolt, and there's a bolt that goes across. I'll have to just undo it and drill another hole across. So that's probably, I don't know, 15 minutes worth of work, but looking pretty good. So we're all painted up and welded, so the frame's ready to go. And next thing I'm going to do is basically do a couple things before I put the floor on. I'm going to put the jack stands on underneath and the jack on the front, and then we should be ready to go, start building the actual box. Now this looks great. You're probably not going to see 90% of the red underneath the box, but it'll still be good for rust protection. So good progress. You wouldn't even recognize it from where it started right now. And we also bought these aluminum plates, so they're going to go along the bottom, just as part of the cover up the ends here, like so. You can see that, and also the sides. It'll be another thing for them to get some bite into for some structure, and it'll just finish it off nicely. So that's next step. So the update since the last video, we put the jack on the front, and it just folds up along the tongue there. Everything's painted, and what I also added was at the back, they just hop over and down. There's some jack stands. There's one on each side, so that's pretty cool. And the other thing that I've done, give me a sec, right here, is these are the cutout pieces of wood. Put some light on it, and I've just put 2 coats of black paint on the bottom to seal it, and they're about to go on. Okay, we're about to start building the walls, but before I did that, I'd boxed off around the fender here, so I didn't have to, kind of redo everything. There will be, insulation, which will take it right up to here, which inch and a half inch insulation. But then the final floor will go over top of this. So I wanted to box this off. Number one for water and stuff. So I just did some of the diamond plate stuff, and I'm pretty happy with that, the way that looks. And now I've got this piece here, and I notice I ground down it flat because it's going to sit on top of here. I wanted it flush mounted, so I had to grind that down. So all I'm going to do now is just kind of lay that over top, I'll rivet it down, and then I've got a platform. When I put my frame here, I'll put a floor joist right along here, and we go up from the wall. So I've done both sides, and boy, it's packed in here. I'm using the garages, or sorry, the camper trailer as storage, and this is just diamond plate. This is going to go. That's just resting. That's going to go on the front, and you notice I did the same thing down here, and I'll put that piece right there on top of that. But I just got the evil eye from my wife, because it's past 10 o'clock. We live in a residential neighborhood, and grinding doesn't go over too well. So I'm gonna have to put a stop to it. The grinding, I'll close the garage door and I'll start drilling for the rivets, and I'll call it a night. And then tomorrow we'll be cutting wood. All right, looking good.